this is your first time in the church in a while, or if you're joining us online, we're so glad that you are with us tonight. My name is Derek Steinacher, and I work with the children's ministry here at Horizons. And my wife Emma and I have a 1-year-old, and the only piece of technology she has is VTech. So if we have problems with that, we just take the batteries out, and it's less annoying. But we know sometime in the next 10 years that obviously technology is going to be a big deal in her life. And so we're so glad that Horizons values this conversation each year, and that Karen gives her time to this conversation each year. A few things we wanted to tell you as we're getting started. If you are online, anyone is welcome to join us tonight, so feel free to share this with others. If you are in the room, you are free to ask questions as Karen goes tonight. She likes interacting with you, so feel free to ask questions. And if you're online, we have Hillary and Olivia right up here front row, and so if you comment your questions online, they will shout them out to Karen, just like you were here. So feel free to throw questions into the comments anytime tonight. Also, we'll try to get to as many as possible, but if we don't get to yours, apologies in advance. There is a lot of good material here in the next hour. If you are a parent, we encourage you to watch this with your student if they're 5th grade and older. If you're 4th grade and under, maybe at this time we just recommend parents only for the viewing. Lastly, to introduce Karen, like a year ago, Karen talked up here before me, and she got the chance to introduce me, and she said, she described me as a nerd, and so I don't know why. I thought, what could I describe her as tonight? But I'll only say good things. I'll take the high road. Karen and her family have been part of Horizons for a long time. She serves in a lot of ways, but one of the ways she serves is by sharing her professional experience with us each year at this presentation. She has 2 children. Her and her husband Dave have 2 children who have gone through our programs here and are great young adults. And lastly, according to her Instagram, her Enneagram number is a number 3. And that means she thinks that no one else can do it better than her, which we agree. This presentation is one of our favorites of the year. So yeah, with that, here's Karen Haase.
Thank you. Hey y'all, I have to untangle the mask from the mic from the. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Derek, that wasn't very smart because I have a whole hour for rebuttal. So my name is Karen Haase. My husband and my kids and I have attended Horizons for about 14 years. I am also a practicing attorney, and my specialty, all my law firm does, is represent public school districts. We have offices now in Nebraska and South Dakota. We represent about 190 school districts in the state of Nebraska. We do not represent Lincoln Public Schools, which is perfectly fine by me. The reason I started talking to kids and community groups about digital citizenship, and digital citizenship is kind of the label we put on all of the safe and responsible online behaviors that we want from kids. The reason we started doing this is because I really got tired of dealing with kids who were being criminally prosecuted, or who were facing really negative personal consequences for making bad decisions online. And so I started going into schools and talking to kids, and if any of you have seen me do that in your school, I do that I actually travel all over the Midwest. But the missing piece is parents. And it's really hard for us to reach out to parents because parents don't always see the need to have this conversation. So I'm super delighted to have you guys here. Now, if it's okay with you, I'm going to pray out loud the prayer I usually pray in my head before I speak in a public school, because it would be really weird if the school lawyer rolled in and violated the First Amendment by praying, right? But here I can pray out loud. So if you'll pray with me for just a second. Father God, I thank you that we are made to be in such a time as this. I thank you that you have placed us into history at a time when we have such amazing resources available to us to reach out, to share, to communicate. I ask, Father God, that whatever I am supposed to say whatever the folks that are listening are supposed to hear, you get me out of the way. Let me say the words only you would have me say, and let everyone who's listening hear only the things they are supposed to hear. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. First thing, I hate that I have to do this, but I am required to tell you that as an attorney, all I do is represent public school districts. I don't represent any individuals. If you have an issue come up, kids and parents, you are free. I mean, the reason I have my contact information here, and kids, I have my Snapchat and my TikTok are the same as my Twitter. The reason I put that up here is because I am more than willing to be a resource for you, but I can't be your lawyer, right? So God forbid your kid is in trouble, call me, I'll hook you up with someone that can help you, but this is not legal advice. I can't be your individual lawyer. So for those of you who are under the age of 30 in the room, let me promise you that I am the coolest 53-year-old you will ever know. My longest Snapchat streak is, hold on, let me check. $1,155. Woo woo. I dig TikTok. I actually have a serious TikTok problem. I think Facebook is lame. So see, I'm just as cool as you guys. I am not here, kids, to convince your parents to make you get rid of your cell phone. I was speaking at a school in Hershey, Nebraska, and as the kids walked in, a kid looks at me and he goes, "Oh, I hate this lady. My mom heard her talk once, and that's why I can't have a phone." That is not my goal here, right? Parents, I am not here to tell you that technology is a terrible thing and that you should smash the Xbox or the PlayStation with a ball-peen hammer, right? You may want to for other reasons, but my goal here is not to turn us into Luddites. In fact, I actually believe that as people of faith, we have an obligation to be in our culture, even if we're not of our culture, right? And I think that means that unless we are taking part on platforms like social media, we are just leaving it to the wastelands of people that are not necessarily trying to use these tools for the positive. So my goal here is not to scare you or to tell you that you can't use this stuff. But I will tell you, in the last 25 years of representing public school districts, I have seen a lot of kids face a lot of negative consequences for making bad decisions online. So my entire goal here tonight is to talk to you about using these tools in ways that are responsible and are respectful. So this is really interesting to me, and I don't know if this is too small for you to see, but this is a survey that was done by several big technology companies, and they surveyed people and said, after using each one of these social media platforms, how do you feel? So look at the answers for Snapchat. After using Snapchat, how do you feel? Silly, creative, attractive, adventurous, flirtatious, excited, happy, playful, and spontaneous. Parents, if you are having trouble getting your kids, if your kid is walking through the grocery store going, right? The reason Snapchat is so addictive is because the algorithm is designed to make you feel positive about yourself and about life after you use it, right? Now compare Snapchat, which is a heavily used by younger, the demographics are younger. Look at the response after someone uses Twitter. Anxious, isolated, overwhelmed, informed, flirtatious, lonely, self-conscious, guilty, depressed. Adults, our experience on social media is way more negative than kids. Am I the only person that feels really great about their kids until they get on Facebook? You know what I'm saying? Everybody else's kids are national honor this and state champion that. And my kids are just good people, you know? But the idea that social media use is heavily reinforcing for young people means that it is really a losing battle for us to simply say you need to turn off your phone and never get on Snapchat. I just don't think that's a winning proposition for us. I also think that although there is a ton of negative and stuff that we wouldn't really want our kids to be seeing online, there's also really awesome stuff. And I think it's that we miss out if we, as adults, say because our experience online is negative, we assume our kids' experience will be negative. If you're interested in this stuff, this is an article that was in the Atlantic magazine in August of 2018 They took demographic trends about young people taking risks, and they laid it out over time and correlated it to the release of the iPhone. So this study was done after 10 years of people having phones. Now, if you were my age or better, you remember this. When we were in high school or middle school and we wanted to get away from our parents, what did we have to do? Drive, leave the house, right? So I grew up in Crete, Nebraska. We would get in the car, we would drive down Main Street, we would get to Sculla's OK Tire, turn around, drive, get to Pomida, turn around, right? And back and forth we go, right? That is not the dynamic for student socialization in 2020, right? The number one way kids interact with one another now is not necessarily face-to-face interaction, but it's through digital media, through Snapchat, Instagram, and TikTok. That does not mean that students are not forming positive social relationships. It means they are doing it in a digitally mediated way, which means, parents, that we need to, if we expect our kids to have in-person social skills, you're going to have to explicitly teach that, right? My kids are a great example. My kids, when they were the age of the kids that are going through confirmation now, when we went to a restaurant, we had to practice making eye contact with the server as we ordered. Am I the only parent that has this problem? Right? Those are social skills that kids aren't picking up just through socialization with peers, because their socialization is mostly online. That does not mean that they aren't forming positive relationships. Hear me, because a lot of adults say, oh, the dang kids, they can't talk to each other anymore. That's not true, right? Kids, you talk to each other, right? Just do it a lot on Snapchat. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just different. So because kids don't have to drive to get away from their parents, the average age when students are getting their driver's license has plummeted. You can see the line here. Do you know what else? Minors who are killed or injured in car accidents has also plummeted. Students cited for driving while intoxicated or minor in possession has also gone down. So for everything that we old people think is weird or different, there are also good things coming along with this. There's way less dating. Remember adults when we would have that first awkward date, and is he gonna hold my hand or not? And kids don't date like that anymore. It's mostly hanging out, a lot of talking on Snapchat. Again, as a result, first sexual relationships are starting at a later age. Teen pregnancy is down. Teen sexually transmitted diseases, significantly lower than it has been at any time since we started measuring these things. And so there's positive and negative that come with it. This one I think is enormous. You see where the numbers go down and then how it spikes back up? This is students who report that they feel lonely, isolated, anxious, or left out. And when the iPhone is released, you see the line trend up, and it's a straight line up almost, where students feel that they are being potentially left out, isolated, or lonely. When adults were kids, when I was a kid, if I did not get invited to somebody's house for a sleepover, I may have heard about it on Monday when I got to school. But as kids now, if you're getting left out, you're watching the thing that you're getting left out of unfold in real time while you are at home. And I think that we are ignoring a huge mental health and social anxiety need that is unfolding among kids of this particular age. And I think as adults, we need to come to terms with that. And it's oh my gosh, the numbers after the COVID shutdowns are startlingly higher than these numbers even. Last one, and then I'll get to the interesting stuff. This is the least remarked on, and I think one of the most potentially significant effects of giving everybody a phone and having them use it all the time. We are raising the most sleep-deprived generation since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And I see this all the time. I see kids who have the phone charging by their bed while they sleep. The phone buzzes because there's a snap or a message on Instagram or whatever. Kid wakes up, responds, puts it back down, dozes a little bit more, someone responds, and back and forth we go. Kids, this is the one time when I'm not on your side. For the most part, I think kids should have access to these technologies and we should teach them how to use them well. I do not think you should be charging phones in your room for a bunch of reasons, right? But one is that it is tremendously disruptive to student sleep, and we don't know what the actual physical effects of the brain are of being this sleep deprived. So when my kids were this age, the rule was everybody plugged their phone in at 10 o'clock and put it on my desk in the first floor, including mom and dad. Now, kids, you say that you need the phone in your room because you need to set an alarm. That's a big fat lie, right? You go to Target and get a clock. I just don't think, and adults, I think the same is true for us. Like I do have my phone now because my parents are both in kind of bad health, but my phone is set to be completely, the only two numbers that will ring through, well, three, my kids and the nursing home where my folks are. So I don't get any notifications, and I don't use my phone as an alarm clock for that very reason. Okay, with that being said, where do I see kids running into problems using social media? I really see several clusters of issues. First, I see kids facing school-based consequences, so I want to talk about that. I see kids making bad decisions in terms of sending and viewing images that involve child nudity, and I see kids ignoring basic internet safety. So those are the big three. So can you read that? I'm kind of sad because I think this is hilarious. Teachers listening to parents complain how kids don't learn anything over virtual learning, knowing darn well their kid can learn 15 TikTok dances in a day. Okay, let's start with school-based consequences, because this is where I spend a lot of my time, because I'm the lawyer that the school calls when they want to impose these consequences. Two broad sets of consequences. Consequences for extracurriculars, and then the other is suspension and expulsion. Now this, kids, is where I tell you, and I admit to you, that school law, what I do, is really messed up, and I'm going to show you. How many of you, if you get in trouble at school and they give you a choice, how many of you would choose to miss the next concert or game or activity versus choosing to miss a day of school, right? So if they say you can have two things, you can either miss your next game or your next concert or miss a day of school, who's picking school? It's okay, you admit it. I would have, right? Yeah. So that's why school law is messed up, because it's actually easier for me as a school lawyer to take away the stuff that's fun, like sports, like music. But it's not that hard for me to take away a day of school, but it's easier for me to take away extracurriculars. So let me start by telling you about this case, which is my favorite case from 2019. This is a Texas case involving cheerleaders, so you know it's got some crazy stuff going, right? High school cheerleader is active on Twitter, and she includes in her description of who she is on Twitter that she's a cheerleader at her school. So this girl didn't really tweet a lot, but she liked a lot of other people's tweets, and she retweeted other people's tweets. So someone else tweeted something about braiding someone's hair, and it included the acronym LMAO, which, kids, you can now whisper to your mom and dad what that means. So she didn't tweet it, but she liked a tweet that had the abbreviation LMAO in it. There was somebody else that had tweeted an image of a conversation. You know how you can screenshot people's conversations? And it had the F word in it 2 times. She tweeted, "I love kissing," LMAO. She said, "I effing love Texas, man. It's beautiful, but overall great. Why would anyone want to leave Texas?" And then she was tweeting at another girl, so she's trying to be positive to this girl. It wasn't an attack or a bullying or anything like that. So she says, "I effing love you so much, and you don't even know, B word, I hope you do great, S word in life, I believe in you." How many of you think these are great choices that she's made on Twitter? How many of you think this is worth getting thrown off the cheerleading squad over? So, the cheer sponsor sees these tweets, and the cheer sponsor kicks her off the team. This girl had signed an agreement where she agreed that the cheer sponsor could look at her tweets. Now, quick footnote, parents, do your kids have to give you permission to look at their tweets? Heck no, right? And if your student has put anything online that's publicly accessible, as the school district's attorney, I don't need consent to go look at what kids are tweeting, right? It blows me away that some kids are still like, oh, dude, that's like my private Twitter. And I'm like, dude, that's on the internet, right? So anyway, so she's dismissed from the cheer squad, and mom and dad sue, arguing that the school district has violated this girl's First Amendment free speech rights. So the school says, please judge, dismiss this case, don't even make us go to trial. Trial court did dismiss the case. Fifth Circuit agreed and affirmed this case. Here's what the Fifth Circuit said, and this is true all across the country with one exception, and I'll explain that in just a second. Fifth Circuit said, look, if she was getting kicked out of school for what she'd tweeted, maybe we'd have a problem with it, but do you have a right to be a cheerleader? No, right? So since being a cheerleader is a privilege, not a right, the court here said it's not a violation of your First Amendment rights for the school to punish you for what you put online. I think it's important for you to realize that this distinction is going to apply to honors programs, to any kind of thing that you're not entitled to automatically from the school. The school can say, but we're going to condition you being able to be on the basketball team or the track team or whatever to you not posting things that are inappropriate. The girl had identified herself as a cheerleader. She had signed this agreement, so the Fifth Circuit was not real interested in helping her. Now, the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, so that's California, is more protective of student free speech rights than all the other circuits. So if you go to California, you might be able to tweet the F word, but you can't do it in Nebraska. Okay? All right, so that's extracurriculars. The second thing that we see happening is kids getting in trouble, like getting actually kicked out of school for what they put on Instagram or Snapchat or whatever. This is the state law in Nebraska that sets forth what's called the Nebraska Student Discipline Act. And what that does is it lists all the reasons why kids can get kicked out of school. So reasons for discipline do include bullying. And in Nebraska, we define bullying as an ongoing pattern of physical, verbal, or electronic abuse. Some of you may have heard stories about kids in other states that suffer all kinds of attacks and, electronic bullying, and the school says there's nothing they can do. In Nebraska, we are empowered to take action, even if the student is, sending the Instagram message using their personal phone, even if they're off campus when they send it. That's a way that Nebraska is kind of ahead of the curve. We can also discipline for students engaging in any activity forbidden by Nebraska law. So when I talk to you about how it's illegal to send nudes, you can also get in trouble at school for that. It's unlawful now for anybody under the age of 21 to juul or to use cigarettes, so you could get in trouble for that if you take a picture and put it online. A lot of schools, and LPS now is one-to-one Chromebooks, right? Is that all the school buildings, Heidi? Yes, okay. So when you're using your Chromebook, if you're a Lincoln Public Schools student, or if you're Norris, I think they're Chromebook too, anything you do on that computer, it's just like you're doing it at school. So there's no privacy in any school-related device or anything like that. So what are the consequences I can impose as the school's lawyer if you do any of this stuff that's not permitted? I already told you easiest thing is for me to kick you out of activities. Second thing we can do is short-term suspension. In Nebraska, that's up to 5 days out of school. Long-term suspension is up to 19 days out of school. Kids, what is your math grade like after 19 days out? Not bueno. Expulsion in Nebraska for this kind of stuff that we're talking about here, expulsion would be 1 semester out of school. Adults in the room, when we were in high school and somebody got expelled, they sort of disappeared and never came back, right? Where did the bad kids go? They were just gone. Sometimes parents are frustrated when schools don't do that to kids that are bullying your child or whatever. Just know that the most we can do as a school system is a 1 semester kick. This one I use quite a bit when it comes to online behavior. Mandatory reassignment says if you can't be nice to the kids at Norris anymore, we'll make you go to Beatrice. Ugh, right? If you can't be nice at Southwest, we'll make you go to Crete. Ugh, right? Parents, just know that schools have the ability to assign your child to any other public school as long as we can work out a deal between the two schools. And lots of times what we have bullying or that kind of electronic misbehavior, what we try to do is get the kid a fresh start, and we do that by shipping them off to a different school. Lincoln typically doesn't do that internally within their district, but if you go to any of the schools outside of the Lincoln area, we do mandatory reassignment all the time. This is a case involving a student who had created a hit list. Now, this student said, I never meant it. I was writing this sort of because I was frustrated and people had been mean to me at school. I get this all the time where kids say, I was only mean because everybody else was mean to me. This kid, though, wrote online, I am God, and these people must die, and then he listed the names of particular people. The student his mom and dad did own guns. Now, kids in the room, if you say these people must die, is anyone going to believe that you're joking? Have you ever said to a friend, oh God, I could just die? You've never said anything like that? You said something like that, right? I mean, some people have. My daughter, who is sometimes a little dramatic, this will not surprise you. My daughter has said, I'm just going to KMS, kill myself, right? Are these the kind of things that you should joke about online? No, and here's the deal. Grown-ups are super freaked out about this stuff, right? So anytime you post anything online that could be considered a threat, even if you know you're joking, even if all your friends know you're joking, the problem is when the school finds out about it and calls me, I don't know you're joking, right? Your friend's mom doesn't know you're joking, and so adults take this real seriously. So this information gets out, and of course all the moms and dads in this school freak out. The police got called, and the police investigated, and they said, this kid didn't mean it. He wasn't really going to hurt anybody. Everybody agrees this was not on purpose. And so the kid's mom and dad were like, phew, that's all over and done with. And the school said, oh no, sorry, the police didn't get you in trouble, but we are going to expel you. Mom and dad sue, claiming that since the kid didn't really mean to make a threat, he shouldn't be in trouble. Who do you think wins this case? The school. That's right. The judges in this case said the school has an obligation to make sure that kids are not making threats to one another. And even if you are joking, even when the police or mental health professionals say that you're not a threat, that does not mean that the school can punish you. So please, before COVID, I spent so much of my time dealing with kids who thought they were like making a funny joke by making threats. Please do not do that. Please do not do that. Okay, so that was for you kids. I just need to take a couple of seconds to explain some stuff to your folks because we know how dumb adults are, yes? Okay, so adults, there's a couple of apps that I think there's 3 apps that every parent of a middle school or high school kid needs to understand right now. Number 1, Instagram. Instagram is still the leading way that high school and middle school kids post content that's meant for general consumption. Snapchat is more communication back and forth, but Instagram is still probably I think that what they say is, the study I saw is the most popular public consumption app. So 800 million users as of 2017. There's way more than that now. Couple of things I want you to know. First off, especially if you're the mom of a middle school girl, Instagram can be used in kind of some subtle ways to socially isolate girls. Instagram is also a really tough app for young women because it's highly visual. Instagram's like Facebook, but every single post has a picture associated with it. And we see kids taking 30, 40, 50 different angles. I see kids Facetune, which is like put a filter over your face to make yourself look better, or just use the straight filters that Instagram has. And we need to be having a conversation with young women about what is real and actually attainable in terms of the female form versus what is actually put on Instagram. There's some really disturbing social scientific studies about self-objectification and how young women are objectifying themselves and really not able to have a positive relationship with their own body because of some of the influence of Instagram. So if you have a young woman, I think you need to have that conversation and have it a lot. And moms, I also think we need to be really careful about the image that we are putting online and how we're modeling self-talk and self-perception to our kids. So there's that. The study that I have here in the third bullet point, they cannot say with certainty that Instagram causes depression. They can say that high usage of Instagram is highly correlated to depression in young people. Again, I'm not saying Instagram is a bad app. I'm saying that if your kid is on it, you should be on it, and you should be kind of keeping an eye on what your child's Instagram feed is telling them about themselves and about the world around them. We also, and I don't have a slide on this, in the last 3-4 months, right before Christmas, we are seeing young people in Nebraska targeted by, and I'm not making this up, it sounds ridiculous, but this is absolutely true, Eastern European organized crime syndicates. They friend kids, and once they friend one kid, it kind of daisy chains out. You know how like you look at your kid's Instagram and you see who your kids' friends are, and you can see who their friends are, and et cetera, et cetera. And so what's happening is these Eastern European crime syndicates are posing as young men or young women. They engage in like this conversation with kids and get them to send nudes on the direct message. And then they're blackmailing kids. They're threatening to send those pictures to their parents. And they're blackmailing kids for money. And if they don't pay up, they actually do disclose them. And we have the State Patrol investigating cases where kids have been targeted exactly like that. I'm not familiar with anything at the Lincoln Public School System, but all around the city of Lincoln, so I know it's in Lincoln. So please, just please be mindful of who your kids are talking to on Instagram. The other thing that adults sometimes don't know about is it's very common in high school and now increasingly common in middle school for kids to have 2 Instagram accounts. The first one is Instagram, and then they call the second one, sometimes they call it a Sinsta, sometimes they call it a Finsta. Sinsta for your sins and Finsta for fake. And so what kids do is they have one Instagram account that mom and grandma can follow, and then the Finsta is for all the stuff that you don't want mom to see. So the way you can tell if your kid has a Sinsta is, number 1, ask them, because most kids will tell you. Or number 2, you can search by your kids' images and see if they're showing up, or grab their phone out of their sweaty little hands. And in that little gear up there on the right-hand corner on the Instagram account, you can see it with the login if it has 2 accounts or 1. But just be aware, I've had some parents completely blown away by what their kid is putting on the other Instagram account. Instagram is also the #1 platform for child grooming. Now, I can tell, like, by the nodding and the nonverbals, that you guys are fairly tech-savvy parents, and those of you that are watching online, obviously you're tech-savvy because you're smart enough to figure out how to, load YouTube, which I'm not always able to do. But so here's the thing. The way predators get to kids on Instagram is not by how your kids' settings are, it's by how your kids' friends' settings are. And so this screenshot shows, see the young man, the picture? So the thing that's circled is a girl who liked one of his pictures. Now that girl's account is closed, but if the predator clicks on that account, they can send the girl a direct message even if she has a private account. And so parents think that the problem of predators online is a problem that you solve by settings and blocking and that kind of thing. And I just don't think that's a reliable metric for protecting our kids. The best way to protect our kids is to have these conversations and to use these apps, because predators find ways around the blocking. So that's Instagram. Adults, I'm going to go back one, sorry. Anybody here not know what TikTok is? Everybody knows TikTok. Yes? Okay, so this is a video, I'm not going to play it then, of Reese Witherspoon's kid explaining to her what TikTok is. The thing that's hilarious about it is if you are famous and a mom, you are still hideously embarrassing to your child. Because he's like, oh my God, Mom, it's so stupid. If you are familiar with TikTok, you know that the algorithm just plays videos for you, even you don't have to go looking for stuff, right? So when I log on to TikTok, most of what I see are dances, because I'm very into the middle school TikTok dance scene, because I am the coolest person in America. And I will tell you, as adults, you will never have as much respect from a middle school group in a middle school public school setting than when a kid says, can you do this TikTok dance? And I break out with, yes, I can. So the other thing that the TikTok algorithm feeds me is dog videos, because I have, 2 dogs, and I think dog videos are hilarious. So my husband gets on TikTok, and he makes an account, whatever, and he says to me, what is up with TikTok? All I see are thirsty 35-year-old women, looking for men. And I'm like, what kind of videos are you watching? But here's the thing, TikTok will feed sexually explicit content, especially to users whose names indicate they're male, because the algorithm knows they're more likely to watch it, right? If your kid's TikTok video feed if you're not watching what the feed includes, the chances of including sexually explicit or sexually suggestive content is super high, and that's not your kid's fault. That's the point I'm trying to make, right? TikTok knows if you log in as John Smith, chances of you wanting to see an attractive young woman, this is my daughter, chances of you wanting to see an attractive young woman scantily clad are pretty good, right? And so I think we need to be having conversations with kids. Again, I'm not anti-TikTok. All of this stuff is value neutral. It's how we use it, right? But talking to your kids about when something comes up that makes you uncomfortable, what do you do? I think we can train the algorithm by telling kids to scroll past it and not to watch it. But adults, you need to be aware that kids don't have to go looking for explicit content. It comes to them. Okay, so I'm going to click through this stuff on TikTok because I'm also kind of watching my time. This one is hilarious to me. This is a 14-year-old Lincoln girl who had posted a video on TikTok, and it had gotten a whole bunch of hits. And so she gets a phone call. And the person who calls her says, hey, I am a representative of TikTok. We are going to feature your video on our feed, and we're going to have advertising. What we need from you is your bank account number so that we can deposit money into your account to pay you for the advertising. And the 14-year-old girl is like, that is so awesome, but I don't have an account. I'll give you my parents' bank account number, okay? And the person on the phone is like, yes, yes. So she gives them the routing number and mom's debit PIN number. Family lost $4,000 before they realized that somebody had tapped into their bank account. And the financial scamming that we see, again, talking to kids about these potential threats is an enormous thing that we got to do because kids are like, I'm TikTok famous, that's awesome. They're not thinking about the fact that this person is probably not legit. I like this cartoon. That wouldn't be any principle I represent. So that's school-based consequences. We are also seeing an uptick in civil litigation. This is when one family sues another family for cyberbullying or other kinds of misconduct online. These cases are all about money. These are not cases where anybody's going to jail. If you own your own home, your homeowner's insurance will pay if you get sued for your child bullying someone. The problem is your standard HO3, that's what most of you have for your house insurance policy. It's a defense only, which means that the insurance company pays the lawyer, but if you lose the lawsuit, they don't pay the damages, which means if you get sued and you go to court, judgments we've seen people have Second mortgage is taken out on the house. We have had a couple of foreclosure cases. Let me show you this case to show you what I'm talking about. This is a case out of Texas where students had created an Instagram page that they called the Klein Hose. Basically, it was students were posting pictures of kids they went to school with that they thought were sexually promiscuous. One of the students that was depicted had had a bad breakup, and her boyfriend just was mad at her, and so he submitted her picture. It wasn't a nude or anything, but her picture was up amongst all these other nudes and whatever. They had 900 followers before they were eventually taken down. So this one girl whose picture had been posted by an angry ex, their parents sued Instagram to find out who had administrative privileges to put content on this page. And then once they found out who was running the page, they filed a lawsuit against each of the families of the students that had put content up. Case went to trial in Texas, and the attorney hired by mom and dad's insurance company, there were 3 families that ultimately went to trial. All 3 of them happened to have the same homeowners insurance company, which is really common. I bet if we polled people in here, if you knew who your homeowners insurance was, I bet we'd have 2 or 3 companies total. So the insurance company is going to save some money because they have the same lawyer representing everybody, right? So the lawyer goes to court, and his argument in front of the judge is, "Judge, it's true, she's promiscuous." How do you think a judge is going to respond to that? He had evidence. He had, well, she went out with this boy, and she did this thing, and she went out with this guy, and they did this thing. And so the lawyer, puts all this evidence in front of the judge, and the judge was like, "Are you kidding me right now? I am not going to talk about the dating life of a 14-year-old girl." And the judge said to the lawyer, "I want you and your clients out of this courtroom, and if you don't settle this case, I'm going to hold you in contempt of court." Because the judge said it was ethically improper to be talking about the promiscuity of a minor, which, Texas judges, what are you going to do? Settlement was for $40,000. Each of the families kicked in 10, and the insurance company kicked in 10 to settle this case. That $10,000 is about where we're seeing a lot of these cases hit. Now, you might be saying, that happens in Texas, but could this happen in Nebraska? Yep. There is a new law on the books. It's called the Uniform Civil Remedies for Unauthorized Disclosure of Intimate Images Act, which is a really long name. Basically, what it says in Nebraska, if you have a nude or an intimate picture of someone and you share that picture without their permission, that person can sue you. They can now, presumably, they don't have to prove that they had to go to the doctor or they had to go to the therapist or anything like that. It is assumed that the person who shared the picture will have to pay $10,000 per picture, per share. One of the other problems we've seen in Nebraska is it's hard to find attorneys to try these cases, and that's expensive. This law also allows, if someone's picture is shared and they sue, now you can also recover your attorney's fees. I think this is an enormous risk for families of middle school and high school students. I see a ton of images shared consensually, boyfriend, girlfriend pictures, that kind of thing, and then the relationship goes sour, and the person who's unhappy about the breakup shares that picture with a friend or on Snapchat or whatever. Please understand there are enormous civil liability risks to that. This law has only been on the books for about a year, and we're already seeing families start to sue using it. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about in terms of things that you put online that can get you in trouble at school or with the police are prosecution for terroristic threats. There has been an explosion in prosecution of kids for making threats online. And like the kid in California that we were talking about that said these people must die, remember, the police didn't charge him, he just got kicked out of school. These cases that I want to talk about now are, you're not worried about school, you're worried about going to jail. So, in Nebraska, no matter how old you are, it is against the law to make what's called a terroristic threat. And a terroristic threat is when you threaten to hurt someone, intending to scare them, or acting in reckless disregard of causing such terror, right? It's a class 4 felony, up to $10,000 fine, up to 5 years in jail. I don't want to tell you about this case. I want to tell you about a Nebraska case. I'm going to skip past this one. Do I have the other one in here? Come on. Come on. Okay, I want to stop here. This is not the case I want to talk about. I want to tell you about a case here in Nebraska. This is a 13-year-old, eighth grade boy who takes a video of himself and puts it on a Snapchat story, and he says, "I'm going to make Columbine look like a joke." Now, kids in the room, do you know what Columbine is? Here's what's amazing, adults, Columbine is so Columbine is like a school shooting that happened a long, long time ago that all adults are super freaked out about. So basically he's saying, I'm going to commit a school shooting, right? So this is a life of a school lawyer. I'm sitting in my office, doing my thing. Phone rings. Hey, Karen, this is Superintendent so-and-so. We had a kid put on Snapchat that he's going to make Columbine look like a joke. What do you think we should do about that? What is every lawyer in the world going to say? Are we going to say, oh, he doesn't mean it. We don't need to worry about that. No, I'm like, why are you calling your lawyer? Call the cops. He's like, you think? Yes. So he hangs up the phone. He calls the police. This is a little school out in kind of the middle part of the state. The superintendent didn't know this, but the police department had gotten a grant to buy new equipment for their SWAT team. So I think the police were like, yes. So up to the school come 3 big black SUVs, right? They pile out of the SUVs wearing black riot gear, and they've got helmets on with the shields down, right? So out they pile out of the car. They go busting into the school. Hoo, ha, right? They've got their guns out. And the teachers are looking out the windows as they're walking down the hallway going, holy cow. So they find the classroom where this kid is. And the kid is sitting in, those desk-chair combination situations? And you know how they have that wire basket under the chair? And kids, what do you put in that basket? Do you put your books there? What do you put instead there? Your feet, that's right. So the kid is sitting in that desk thing, and he's got his feet kind of threaded through, the metal things under the chair. And so the police go busting into the classroom. And they try to grab the kid, but he's all tangled up in this desk. So they drag the kid and the desk out into the hallway. I finally get him out of the desk, put the kid in handcuffs, and march him out the school. Put him in the Antelope County Jail. Now, when you get arrested, have you ever heard of getting bailed out? Right? Any kids, any of you have a teacher that make you leave your shoe if you have to borrow a pencil from him? No? Adults, you see how easy these kids have it today? So bail is when your mom and dad go to the police and say, hey, I'm going to give you some money, and when it's my kid's turn to get in trouble, I'll bring him back, and you'll give me the money back when I bring him back, right? It's a way for you to go home after you've gotten arrested. The problem is, in this town, there's not a judge there every day, so the sheriff won't let the kid go home. So the next day, the judge drives into town, and I'm there because the school's involved, and this judge is not very nice. I actually know her from some other stuff. And so the kid is there, and now he's crying because he's been in jail overnight, and his mom is crying because her poor baby. And the judge is like, hold on a second. And she turns to the sheriff, and she says, Mr. Sheriff, is it true that yesterday you took armed law enforcement into our local school, and you handcuffed a 13-year-old child, and you would not let him go home to his mother last night? Is that what you got up to yesterday, Mr. Sheriff? And the sheriff, God bless him, he looks this judge straight in the eye and he says, yes, Your Honor. And kids, this is the entire point of this story. The sheriff says, yes, Your Honor, because a 13-year-old knows right from wrong. That kid knew that he should have never made that threat, and I didn't think it was safe to send him home. And the judge turns to the kid and says, okay, tell me, why did you post it? And the kid says, oh, Your Honor, it was just a joke. And the judge said, really, I'm not laughing. She sent the kid to jail for 2 more nights. Kid's been 3 nights in jail. He's on probation now until he's 18 years old. While he's on probation, he is not permitted to own a cell phone. His mom recently got rid of cable, and so he had to go to court and ask for permission to be on the internet to watch TV, and guess what the judge said? No. So he did get special permission to be online when we closed the school, so he could Zoom and Zoom only, but otherwise the kid's like sitting at home with nothing else to do. Please, guys, do not joke about any kind of school violence because adults are super freaked out about it. Okay, I'm watching my time. That's David. Okay, I want to talk real quickly about sexting. Adults, do you see the lines trending upward across the screen? That is the first is 11% of 12-year-olds have already sent a nude image. 15% of 13-year-olds, 23% of 14-year-olds, 24% of 15-year-olds, 33% of 16-year-olds, 31% of 16-year-olds have already received an image. The blue line is for sending. If you think that the kids you know are not engaged in sexting, you are sadly mistaken. By my rough calculations, about 30% of middle school students have already either sent or received a nude. And I think that as adults, it's all too easy for us to close our eyes to this problem, and then when someone gets caught, act shocked and surprised. We have got to have this conversation with our kids now before this is the perfect age. In fact, I started talking to my kids about this in 3rd and 4th grade because early or late elementary is where we see this behavior begin. Just another set of data of middle school and high school students. I'm trying to think if I can hit the high spots here. 23.8% of students have already been asked for a nude. So yeah. The problem is, for all of the talk that we're doing in schools about this behavior is increasing, not decreasing. The trend lines are going the wrong direction. 1 in 4, there you go, 1 in 4 middle school and high school students have been asked by someone to send them a sexually explicit image, and again, I think that is actually higher in Nebraska. So, a couple of things. In Nebraska, it is against the law to even ask someone to send them a nude of a minor. We have a lot of kids say, you know, Karen, I know I'm not supposed to send this stuff, but he keeps asking and asking and asking. Kids, I don't care how much you like him, I don't care how many times she asks you, you should never send any image on your phone that you would not show your grandma. And we see kids time and time again break that rule and face all kinds of consequences. In Nebraska, it is against the law for anyone to take a sexually explicit image of a kid. And that includes pictures of someone covering up parts of their body with their hands. Sometimes kids think as long as their hands are in the right place, they can't get in trouble. It includes if you have pictures of kids in their underwear, right? We call it nudes, but it includes any picture that you wouldn't send your grandma. Against the law for anyone to even possess a sexually explicit image of a child. Here's what that means. Parents, on Snapchat, when you have a message, you get a little notification, there's a little red box. When your kid opens that picture, even if they do not know that it's a nude, the minute that box is open, boom, your child has committed a felony. Because you don't have to know what's coming when you open the text. Once you've possessed it, you've committed the crime. If you think about it, this sort of makes sense. These laws were passed to catch predators, right? And you don't want a child predator to say, oh, I didn't know she was 14, or I didn't know she was going to send it to me. So that's why these laws are so strict. But the problem is it catches a lot of kids either who did not know what they were getting or who thought that they could not get in trouble because it was kid sharing image with kid. if you, and I see Heidi Max, I'm going to pick on you, if you are a teacher, if you hold a nursing license, a law license, any kind of medical license, veterinary license, you are also required to report any act of child abuse. You're a mandatory reporter. And the way we define child abuse in Nebraska includes asking someone for nudes or sharing nudes. So if you have any kind of licensure with the state and you hear that kids are exchanging these pictures, you have to report. And I sometimes have parents very frustrated that teachers have called law enforcement when it's like, look, everybody knows that they're dating and I'm going to work this out and my kid shouldn't have sent it, but why did the school have to freak out? This is why, right? Because otherwise you're endangering, Heidi would be endangering her teaching license if she knows that someone's asking for nudes and she doesn't report it. So, we just have this constant battle. Now, sometimes I have parents, especially after a situation like this, you might be thinking, criminally, Karen, do we have to talk about naked kids in church? And when Derek came up and said, if your kid is under 5th grade, you might not want to watch this, I was laughing to myself thinking, only Karen Haase has a PG-13 rating on a church talk, right? Here's the thing. According to all of the social science research, the only thing that changes youth behavior in terms of sexting is talking about criminal prosecution. Because kids don't think they'll get caught. They don't think mom and dad will ever know. So I'm all about talking about values and the tremendous dignity that, your body is worth so much more than a nude in a bathroom mirror, right? And I believe that to my core. But parents, the only thing that changes kids' behavior, according to the research, is talking about the fact that it's a crime. So that's why I spend so much time on it. Not that I think this is the only valid conversation to have, but it seems to be the only effective conversation to have. Number one thing kids say when interviewed, middle school students, number one thing they say, the thing my parents don't know about social media is how much nudity. Number one response. It's just so prevalent. So when I go into schools, I include my Snapchat account, I include my TikTok, because I want kids to have a resource that they can talk to, right? So I get these communications from kids all the time. So this kid says, hey, Karen, this person keeps talking to me and I just don't really know what to do. And now he's sent me some pictures that make me uncomfortable. Can I send you a screenshot? And I'm like, oh, sweet God, no. Well, too late, he sends me this picture. This kid, and you can't read the text, but it's an adult that is texting. Every communication is one way. Hey, what's your name? Want to hang out? Send me some pics. And then the adult, without being solicited or responded to, immediately sends a nude. Again, I'm not saying kids can't be on Snapchat, but if you don't have conversations with your kids about how to respond and when to block, and that they have to immediately tell you if anybody makes them uncomfortable, they're left with no resource except to talk to the lawyer that passed through their school 2 years ago, right? So we've got to have these conversations. Last thing I'll tell you about, and kids, this story is for you because you guys are way smarter than your parents. I'm going to tell you a story about Jeremy because I worry about kids interacting with people online that they don't know in real life. So Jeremy's Instagram profile says, I'm 12 years old, I love to play Fortnite, I love to be on Snapchat, hit me up if you want to hang out, right? So Jeremy meets this girl playing Fortnite, and he says to her, hey, you're really cool. Do you want to talk on Snapchat? And the girl says, no, I don't really use Snapchat. I want to talk on Facebook. Jeremy's like, that's weird because only old people use Facebook. But okay. So they talk back and forth on Messenger. And they talk a whole bunch. It's amazing how much they have in common, right? Her parents are getting divorced. His parents are divorced, like all this stuff. Eventually, Jeremy says to her, I feel like we're more than friends. I feel like you're my girlfriend. And the girl says, oh, I feel like you're my boyfriend. So Jeremy says, hey, I've heard that sometimes when kids are girlfriend, boyfriend, they share pictures with each other. Would you send me some pictures? And the girl says, oh no, let's not exchange pictures. Why don't you come visit me at my house? At her house. She invites him to her house. And Jeremy says, oh, that's a really good idea. So she gives him her address. Jeremy goes and knocks on the door. And when the door is opened, the police are there and they take Jeremy's picture. Do you want to see Jeremy? You all thought you were so smart, didn't you? You knew this was a story about a creeper, didn't you? But you thought the creeper was the girl, didn't you? You were thinking the whole time, oh, Jeremy, don't do it. Don't do it, Jeremy. Here's the deal. Even though you're so smart that you know when a lawyer's talking about online safety that there was going to be a creeper, even though the whole time I was telling you about this, you saw the creeper coming, your mind still made a picture of what Jeremy really looked like, didn't it? In your mind, ooh, Jeremy went away. In your mind, you thought Jeremy was a kid and the predator was the girl. Here's the point. No matter how smart you are, no matter how careful you are, if you talk to people online that you don't know in real life, you have no idea if Jeremy is the creeper or the kid, right? This is why kids, while I am all for using social media, I think you only need to be talking to folks that you know in real life because you never know who Jeremy really is. Okay, shoot, it's 8:02. Hilly, do we have questions? Is this what I see from the... Someone, I'm super... Oh, hold on. Someone's going to have to shout it out for me. Or put it up here. Suggestion from Nicole. Oh, hi, Nicole. Miss you. How's Kansas? Hope it's warm. So Nicole wants me to tell this story, and I'll do this and then I'll let you go because I want to be respectful of your time. But this is the reason Nicole likes this story is it shows how, especially online, we're all responsible for each other, right? So I was in a school and I was telling a story. It wasn't the Jeremy story, but it was a creeper story. I did the high school first and then the middle school second. So after I told the story about the creepers, the high school girls had lunch, and they were all sitting at this lunch table. And the girls were talking about the fact that they really weren't friends with anybody online that they didn't know in real life, except they were all friends with one person that they didn't know. And as they talked about it, it kind of weirded them out that it was the same guy that had friended all of them. And so the high school girls were all like, ew, we're going to block him when we get home because this is just ick. And this is one of those schools that's like a brick, like they couldn't get on social media with their phones because of the way the school was set up, which made the school super happy. So anyway, the high school girls were like, this guy seems off. We're all going to block him. Literally, while the girls are having this conversation, I'm talking to the middle schoolers. And so I do the same thing. I'm driving home from talking to this school, and I get a text message from a kid who says, I am 12. My friend has shared pictures with the guy that she met online. Do you think that's bad? So I pull over and I'm like, did she just send pictures or did they do stuff in person too? Super long. In fact, I just about started driving again. I thought maybe she got caught with having her phone. And she responds, yeah, they did stuff in person too. So I drive through, I felt like such a, I was going to say a bad word. I felt like such a boss because I went through the interstate, like the median, and turned around. Drove back to the school and found out, sure enough, a student at this school had been taken advantage of by a grown-up that she'd met online. The girl who was victimized was a little sister of one of the high school girls that was at the lunch table. And the guy that had done this was that weird dude that all the high school girls had accepted his friend request. The little sister who's in middle school, do you know why she accepted his friend request? Her sister was friends with him. Here's the thing. Maybe you're so smart that no one can ever take advantage of you. Maybe you're so cool that you would never be talked into doing something that you didn't want to do. But the question is, who is relying on your judgment as to who it's safe to be friends with? Right? We're all responsible for each other. And that story I've told Nicole a bunch of times because it's such a great illustration of a real-life person in this state who has to now live with the knowledge that her little sister was molested because her sister trusted her about who it was safe to hang out with. So thank you, Nicole, for suggesting that, because it's... Okay, 8:06, other questions? Yes? Did they go to court for the story I just told you about the two sisters? They didn't have, the guy was arrested. That guy had done this to other kids, so he was already on the creeper list. So that guy he went right to jail. They didn't even have to have a trial. But yeah, I mean, the police did get involved. Yeah, DJ. Yes. So the problem is, like I said, the minute you open the text or the snap, the crime is complete. What I would do if I was a parent, I would immediately reach out to, if you know the person who sent the nude, I would immediately reach out to that family and, like, in a very non-confrontational but the friendliest way possible, tell them. Kids, what I want you to do if you receive a nude that you didn't ask for, don't screenshot it, please. Don't save it. Reply to the person who sent it to you and say, dude, don't send this to me. You know, this is not who I am. These are not my values. And if that person continues to send it to you, you're going to have to reach out to an adult. You can talk to your folks. You can call me. Do know that if you talk to a teacher or a principal or a counselor at school, they are going to have to get the police involved. But that's okay, right? Sometimes that's exactly who should get involved. But yeah, DJ, my best advice to kids is when you receive it, if you know the person and you know they're just being dumb, what I want you to do is say, please don't send me that anymore. And then save a copy of that message so that if the police come calling, you can show them, no, I didn't want the picture. Yes? I don't think you should screenshot if someone sends you an inappropriate picture, I don't want you to screenshot that because that's actually another crime. You know what I mean? So what I want you to do is let the picture disappear, right? Then you type the message back to them, don't send me this stuff, send it, screenshot that so that it will show the empty box. Do you know what I'm saying? And then it will show your response. That's what I want you to screenshot. Now, here's the thing. When you screenshot that, what's the other person going to get? A notification that you screenshotted it, and I think that's okay. Because then that person knows that you have kept a record of the conversation of you saying, I don't want you to send this anymore. So I think that actually works to your benefit. Just make darn sure you're not screenshotting the inappropriate picture. Other questions? Okay, can you throw up the first or last slide? Just I want to have my contact information. I think the last one's perfect. About Snapchat pictures, even though they don't stay on our phones. Oh yes, this is so true. So Snapchat is keeping copies of every picture that goes across the app. And the reason I know that is they moved their servers from California to, there's some in France and there's some in England, because they were going to get raided for having so much child pornography on their servers. So anything you send on Snapchat, even though it disappears off the phone, it is still saved on a server somewhere. And again, I'm sorry, guys, I kind of this is like a different vibe when it's a big room than the little Bob, isn't it? So here's my information, my email, my Facebook, my Twitter. Again, my Instagram is the same as my Twitter. I'm happy to be a resource for you guys, or snag me at church when we ever get to come back to church in person. Or if you've got questions, you know, throw them up on whatever platform you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, and I'll respond. Anything else? All right, these slides will be up on my website, and I think Derek will also have them up on the Horizons site. Thank you, guys. You've been awesome. Thank you for sticking with.